Good morning on the West Coast and good afternoon on the East Coast. Today is Wednesday, February 2nd, and happy Groundhog Day to everyone. I'm John Harrington, CEO of the Performance Marketing Institute, a 501c6 not-for-profit trade association dedicated to protecting, promoting, and advancing the direct-to-consumer and direct response advertising industries. And on behalf of the entire PDMI family, it's my pleasure welcoming you back to yet another fun-filled and exciting episode of the PDMI Take 20. As a reminder, the PDMI Take 20 is a quick-hitting roundtable discussion led by industry experts on trending topics, all in 20 minutes or less. Today we'll be joined by Jason Anderson of Modern Postcard, Amit Khubani of Ontel Products, and Todd, they call him the Captain Thill of Thill Inc. And we'll be talking about the supply chain shenanigans. However, before we get started, please allow me to do a little housekeeping. If you'd like to ask a question, we encourage you to do so. Please use the control panel the questions tab located in your control panel. Please note, we will be holding all questions to the end of today's conversation, but you're welcome to ask them throughout the conversation as we proceed through today's webinar. Alrighty, folks, with that said, it's my pleasure to welcome today's moderator. His business card simply reads, "I'll call you." He's the fearless Chris Foster. Chris is the Vice President of New Business Development at Modern Postcard, a direct marketing agency located in Carlsbad, California. In addition to his day job, Chris teaches brand strategies at UCSD extension courses, and he's the chairperson of the Brand Response Council. Chris, welcome to the program today. Thank you for being here, and take it away, my friend.
You got it. Thanks so much, Johnny. Appreciate that intro, and welcome, gentlemen. So glad that you're here, and this is the topic, right? We call it supply chain shenanigans, and this is part one. In a couple of weeks, we're going to do part two. Look. When 85 ships were seen stagnant off the coast of Long Beach and containers stacked up outside of warehouses with product ready to go to consumers, but not being able to move, we knew we were going to have to do some quick stepping and side shuffling within organizations to try to meet these fickle demands of consumers. People were at home and they were buying more. The pent-up demand and consumer behavior of wanting product right now goes right up against the reality of supply shortages. So today, part one is about real supply right now, and most importantly, how organizations are managing. Look, we all know it personally. My wife likes coffee-flavored yogurt, right? It's the only kind of yogurt she's going to eat. There's no coffee-flavored yogurt. I can't buy it. So from coffee-flavored yogurts to medical devices, used cars, computer chips, the normal flow of always having product available has definitely changed. So leaders like we have today in managing product, the suppliers, the logistics, and the people involved have to do a lot of changes, and we're going to jump into some of the challenges and the solutions that they've come up with throughout their work experience and through these last couple of pandemic years. So glad to have everybody here. We're going to just jump right in, and Amit, I'm going to start with you from Ontel Products. You sell product, you work with suppliers, you work with manufacturers, distributors. Please give us a story about the moment when you discovered that you were short on a necessary supply, and what did you do about it?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I just want to address the coffee-flavored yogurt. Although I don't like to see products now make it to the shelf, that one, I kind of am happy that didn't make it. I apologize to your wife. But that is, I'm going to have to try it. I can't say anything. I never tried it. So just doesn't sound great. No, but all jokes aside, I think, like for our category, I think, like there's some people who had a little bit of foresight. Like we saw what was going on in China already in December and January of 2020. And so, like we expected something to happen. I think, initially we placed our orders overseas. When we realized that mass retail was closing down, our initial thought was like, oh my God, we better pause what's on its way. We don't know what's going to happen. I think like everybody else in the United States, like we were like, let's tighten our belt a little bit. Let's try to ride through this. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. What we didn't anticipate is that demand, like there's two sides to this equation, right? There's a supply side and there's a demand side. From the supply side, like it certainly, like kind of paused what we were doing, not really, like anticipating too much demand. On the demand side, we were dead wrong, right? Everybody wanted to, I mean, more coffee flavored yogurt than any human could possibly consume. But it was every item, like literally, that was available to be purchased was being purchased in mass, right? So we quickly realized that we made a mistake. We increased production overseas, and like initially it was fine. I think the real supply chain issues for us started materializing in 2021, or like where we were like, look, we have this incredible demand. We had a great year last year. Let's continue on to buy. And I think everybody also, like between PPE and gloves and masks and everything that was clogging up our ports, like I think that's where we really got into trouble. As the as a virus kind of hit the shores, as a virus kind of spread around the country and lockdowns happened, it caused major trucking shortages. Like it caused like ports to be very scheduled and how the product is actually brought in. And I think that's where it all kind of went to hell. Like everybody was buying as much as they possibly could, and our system just couldn't manage it. And then it's not only a U.S. problem. This problem is happening all over the world. Like the cost structures that we're facing, they're facing the same thing in the U.K. But it's I think it was somewhere around the end of 2020 we realized we were gonna have a real issue here. And it's really like, it's not even a matter of like actually getting product. It's anybody who makes any product in the, like, and supplies it into retail, or supplies it into anywhere, supplies it onto Instagram. They just, like, they're not going to make any money this year. Like it's just almost a fact of the matter. Just, like we have to tighten our belt because freight rates are up 500%. And how do you manage a business with, something that like that happens? So that's what happened from our experience.
Sure. No, that's a great comment. And I think that your idea of cost structures adjusting is, more so than a newspaper headline. It actually affects real businesses. Jason, I'm going to turn to you because Modern Postcard print and manufactures direct mail, right? So we actually have paper. And Jason, you had some stories about some cost structures changing for paper, and especially European side and American side. How did you start to handle some of that? And why don't you tell the audience your story?
Yeah, well, the first time cost structures obviously changed. Yeah, and the first time we started to see some problems, we also had the same idea that we saw problems coming and we thought we would get ahead of it. And one of the things we did is we put ourselves in a position to think that there was going to be problems. We had no idea how bad they would be or what they might be, but we thought we got ahead of the curve on that. We worked with our partners to make sure they were in good spots, or the best we thought. And unlike it being global, we have the global issues as well. We thought we were in a great position. And this again was at the middle of 2020 as we were moving towards the back end of the year, and we're feeling pretty confident. And it might have made us a little flat-footed. And then we had domestic weather events and things like that caused us additional problems that we didn't foresee that, and we didn't foresee maybe the limitations that some of our partners were having. We might have felt like we were in a good spot, but our partners didn't have the elasticity to bounce back like they used to. And so when that happened, we got caught again a little bit flat-footed, but we did take away from that we just couldn't approach business like that anymore. We had to work a little bit harder to have a better understanding of our partners and what their abilities were and where we might go after that. So good takeaway. Still difficult as we continue to move through it, for sure.
I love that concept, Jason, where you can plan for your own change and try to foresee and adjust for what might be a projected shortfall for you and manage your own business, but you can't necessarily plan for your partner's changes, right? Because in this interdependent world of the economy, while you might be able to take care of yourself, you can't necessarily solve your partner's problems for them, and you're dependent on them. So Todd, I'm going to go to you. With 3PL systems, you're really reliant on a variety of various partners and other folks to work with to fulfill. How did you manage that those relationships, knowing that if you needed to plan, you couldn't necessarily plan for their shortcomings either?
Yeah, for us, it was a matter of making sure that we had a network of suppliers that were diverse enough that we weren't dependent on a single one. I mean, it was all the way down to box manufacturers, tape suppliers, even janitorial supplies. I mean, one of the biggest issues we had early on was the fact that we had to manage through how to maintain it and change our cleaning habits of our facilities. But the carriers were the biggest issue. So having the ability to use FedEx, UPS, DHL, Ascendia, OSM Worldwide, and having all that structure built into our model really helped us spread the wealth out. And so when we could see that there was a clog in the wheel somewhere through the distribution process, we were able to adjust accordingly. So if we found out that one hub for a carrier was congested or had a problem, we could move it to another carrier in another part of a region to get the same destination, but just picking a different path to get there. And so we relied on our technology and those partnerships, and that's really how we made it through that period of time, and we're continuing to do that. It's gotten worse because now it's the inbound as well. So trying to manage, the inbound materials in the containers from around the world, is very interesting. And each country, it has its own challenges. We look at China, that's one challenge, but India's got a second challenge. We do a fair amount of apparel in Honduras, the Philippines. They all have their own challenges as well. So trying to figure out how to help our customer base manage through all of that has been, interesting. And then the other piece that we did was, of course, facility and staffing, right? So in a 3PL, I'm dependent on people picking and packing and putting stuff in boxes. So the last big step for us was we actually opened 5 new facilities over the last 2 years. And we took our customer base and actually spread our customer base out across those facilities. And we mitigated any risk for those customers and the staff so that we could spread everybody out over a larger area and protect everybody.
Sure, that's wonderful. And what's interesting about that, Todd, is that it's almost like organizationally and then personally slash professionally as leader, you had to develop completely brand new skills. So it's not just managing your own business, but thinking about the distributed mechanism, thinking about a variety of carriers, thinking about managing a global supply of apparel from South America to India, to Vietnam to China. It's like you have to actually expand your skill set in terms of the problems that you're trying to solve.
We did. I mean, it definitely forced us to look at how to become even more of a virtual company. I mean, because we're already running a large footprint in the United States, that helped us. I mean, anywhere from the West Coast, the East Coast, the Southeast region of the country. I mean, that all helped us, but then to spread our staff out, and we took it really seriously. I mean, ironically, I haven't been in my own operation since March of 2020, and that's out of design. I mean,
you're the main engineer.
Yeah. So, but we took our client services team, we broke them up, and we just looked at it and said, how do we manage our way through this? And now that we've done it, I'm not sure we're ever going to go back. I mean, sure. We've become so nimble and we've gotten good at what we're doing. But, that brings up another whole challenge for us as a country in that, what are we going to do with all of our office space, all of those other, things that we're no longer using, and the fact that everybody has become used to working at home or working remotely or minimalistically. So it's going to be interesting to see what, the next 12, 24 months brings.
Sure. No, that's it. What's interesting about the pandemic is that these topics, whether it's supply chain or working virtually or agile workflow development, it all is interconnected, right? It's a very much now more so than ever an interdependent, work environment. But I'd like to kind of lean into your idea of managing the team and changing that. And Jason, I'll move back to you with that. How did you talk to the team about supply chain issues? Oftentimes we've got guys who are mailing services, they're folding cards, they're cutting cards, they're packing cards, seemingly distant from the supply chain issues, but intimately involved as it relates to our business. What's your message to the team?
I mean, a couple different messages. I think the message to the folks that are here working dealing with the supply chain issues firsthand, trying to keep up with our partners is a different conversation than the one we have with the client-facing team. Client-facing team, we're just trying to get a better understanding to them. You know, here's where we're at, here's some of the challenges, here's how it impacts lead time, cost, availability of supplies, to keep them educated so they can have a conversation with their clients so that they're not caught off guard. We'd rather try and explain some of the issues that we're having up front than catch them on the back end surprised. Most people are pretty understanding when you explain. Doesn't mean we're not going to try and do a great job and keep everything moving fluidly, but there has been an occasional bump in the road, and we want to make sure that team understands what's going on to the best of their ability so that our clients are as educated as possible. The back end group that's actually dealing with it, again, is a different conversation in the sense of, here's some challenges. What are we going to do to overcome these? Where are the shortcomings? Let's make sure we're prepared. Don't assume that anything's going to work out the way you think it's going to work out. So let's have some contingencies on the back end of that. So different conversations. They've been pretty fruitful from what we can see. They've helped us get through. Again, it's been a challenge, as we all keep saying, but those conversations have helped keep that moving forward for sure. And most importantly, getting that out to our clients to make sure that they're not caught short or off guard as well.
Yeah, I think the communication, and I like what you said about it, Jason, is the honesty of the communication, right? If we've got a client who says, hey, I need 500,000 direct mail pieces to go out, and can they mail tomorrow? And we're like, well, actually, hold on, we've got to actually get the paper to print it and put it through. And I mean, Modern's a pretty quick turnaround operation, but we also have to be authentic and transparent with our customers too. I guess, I mean, how are you handling that transparency with your team and then to your end customer base?
I mean, look, our end customer base is mass retail, right? Like it's like the Targets and Walmarts and Home Depots of the world. Believe it or not, you know, these are generally, not that they're difficult to work with, but they're the largest retailers in the world, right? So they want what they want when they want it, and there's people lined up to give them those things. And so the fact that we're in that line and we're supplying them, you know, it's a big responsibility on us, but it's something, you know, like it's a point of pride, right? So in that way, we've been hyper communicative with our retailers, right? Like in regards to slowdowns, like there are legitimately things that are out of our control, you know? So they've been, and, you know, for the most part, mass retail as well, they're in the same boat that we are. They're also importers of products. They're seeing the same supply chain issues that we're seeing. They're seeing, you know, like various links in that chain break down. And whether it's, you know, like at the ports or, you know, like moving product domestically, which historically has been quite simple and pretty cost effective, like even rail systems failed during the pandemic. So it's just, you know, like the problems just, you know, like they just became so broad that we could just, you know, like all we could do is just effectively shake our head and move on to somebody that had more product. So we've been very communicative on the outside with our client base because we need to. They can't have, you know, like empty spaces on their shelf, but they've certainly had their share. And internally, we take it day by day, you know, we realize where we are in this chain as well. So moving up and down this chain and kind of, you know, like finding as many partners to supply things to us, you know, that's been, you know, like our management's responsibility. You know, we have things that are both made overseas, but things that are made domestically. And we didn't anticipate, you know, some of the issues. Like there was bottle shortages, right? Because everybody who had a bottle turned it into, you know, like hand sanitizer. So, you know, we have a very successful selling car. It's the #1 selling car wax on Amazon for the last 20 months, and we couldn't get a bottle to fill this stuff with. By the way, if anybody wants a 55-gallon drum of car wash stuff, send me your address.
Awesome. You know, what's so interesting, and I don't mean to laugh, but I have to laugh as opposed to cry or go pull your hair out, right? Because such a small mundane thing as actually getting a plastic bottle where it was always readily available. The fact that that's a shortage is interesting. Guys, we could talk all day on this stuff, but we're already past 20 minutes. So the takeaways that you guys have put up, which has been wonderful, is not only planning for your own change, but trying to anticipate the shortcomings of the planning of the partners that you rely on, making a network of suppliers instead of just holding on to a handful, but distributing that network to make sure that you've got coverage, contingency plans, the hyper-communicative requirement, and being honest about those communications, not only to clients internally, but also to suppliers and vendors. And lastly, it really brings home and drives home the interdependent nature of the industry and the economy. And I think personally that interdependency reminds us that the personal relationships we have with our vendors and our suppliers and the partners, the personal touch that we have, and the fairness and the win-win-win attitude is probably even more important than ever. You can't try to take something over on someone because you need them, and everybody's finding out, I think, that they need each other. And I think, you know what, in some small way, maybe that can help in the long run. So, John, I'm going to pass it off to you and to Thomas to see if we have any questions from the audience.
Guys, great conversation, great discussion. Yeah, we've got a couple of good ones. I think we got time for 2 questions, so let's do it. Here we go. Building additional capacity, holding inventory, and safeguarding against disruptions is not cheap. Therefore, do you believe the recent supply chain issues will entice businesses to manufacture more domestically?
I can take this one, because these are things that we're grappling with. Like, I think we're normalizing higher prices, and if you can normalize higher prices, the option for domestic manufacturing becomes more available, right? Like, the reason that we manufacture our products in China is because they're inexpensive, right? But if we're getting more money now at the register, it does change the potential unit economics. Like, if I manufacture a pillow, and I have 3,000 pillows in a container, and it's costing me $20,000 a container to bring it in, that's like $7 a pillow. It's a $30 retail pillow that can't very well afford to pay $7 in freight. So that product may be domestically manufactured where it couldn't be domestically manufactured previously. Just again, because the freight rates are so high. There's also significant increases in costs in China as well, which make perhaps the unit economics out of the United States make a lot more sense. And if it's not the United States, maybe it's Mexico. Certainly not Canada. We don't like the number. Totally kidding. I love my brothers to the north. But yeah, no, I think it definitely opens it up, particularly for like generally cubically challenged products.
That's really good feedback, Amit. Thank you. Jason, Todd, would you guys care to weigh in?
No, I think he hit it right on the head. So, I mean, we're seeing the same thing. We're seeing people where they can manufacture domestically, but there's challenges with it. And then we're seeing people that are sourcing out of multiple countries because they're playing the odds. They're using India and China and same product, but bringing it in the East and West Coast to see if they can't, deal with some of the interruptions in their overall business model.
Yeah, I agree. Some of the similar cost issues going on, and comparing our overseas to our domestic, they're getting closer and closer together because, again, that's the reason we were overseas, was for cost, and it's getting closer. So we're leaning domestic.
Thanks,
and I
guys.
think everybody would kind of choose a domestic option if it was available, right? Like, and for pillows it works. Like for air fryers, it's going to be a little bit more challenging. Yeah.
Well said, guys. Well said. Let's try another question. Have things stabilized since the holiday season? And if yes, do you expect them to continue to be stable, or do you believe that there's things on the horizon which could cause issues to come back in the forefront?
I think that, right now we're in for a roller coaster ride. There are so many things that we just don't know, and we haven't known for the last 2 years. So I think, from my perspective at least, we're trying to be prepared to continue to find flexibility, and even greater than where we are today, because we just don't know what's going to happen. And, you know, I think there are some long-term things that have to happen. I mean, automation in the U.S. ports, looking at what can be done as far as better communication. Over-the-road trucking is a huge issue that's not going to go away. You know, where do the Teslas and the other guys that are out there that are working on automation for the trucking industry? You know, can that be expedited? I mean, there's a lot of variables out there that are going on that we just don't know. So I think it's going to be a continued state of flux.
Todd, would you upgrade your facilities to accommodate these electric trucks if they were on the road?
The answer is absolutely yes. I mean, you know, right now, I mean, you know, one of our biggest challenges is that the big retailers are, you know, using third-party carriers because they can't get everything on their own networks. And what we're seeing is, you know, yellow freight shows up and we're expecting them to take a full truckload, and there's 3 pallet locations left on the truck. You know, and from a routing perspective, from a, you know, organization paperwork perspective, it just puts more burden on the entire organization. So not to mention their supply chain. So I think overall, you know, if we could, yeah, we absolutely would.
You know, I think that broadly, we have talked about this on a lot of different Take 20s about planning for change, and that uncertainty becomes the new normal. I think that's true. I think, Todd, you're right. We have absolutely no clue what new variant is going to come along. We know that there will be a new one. We don't know how governments will respond. Australia just said, forget it, open up. Netherlands were like, open up, just forget it, whatever. But I think that the repercussions of not only the supply chain issues, but Todd, you mentioned it earlier in the broadcast about empty office buildings, right? Where do they show up? How does virtual work change the supply chain economics, right? I think that there's no set pattern yet or stability that we're going to be able to see in the next couple of years. Personally, I might be wrong, but I just don't see it.
Certainly not before Chinese New Year, which is upon us. So I mean, maybe
I'm a tiger, baby.
Yeah.
Alrighty, guys, we're up on the 30-minute mark, so I'm going to come back in here. Awesome session, guys. Really awesome session. Amit, Jason, Todd, Chris, great insight, really good information. Thanks for making the time to share your wisdom with us today. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as I did. Before we close out, I'd like to take a moment to invite you to join us at our next episode of the PDMI's Take 20, hosted Wednesday, February 16th at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, where we'll be doing part 2 of the supply chain shenanigans. I'd also like to remind you that PDMI Spring Conference, PDMI East, is scheduled for March 13th to 15th in Miami at the Eden Rock Hotel. You can get more information on both badges and housing at thepdmi.com. That's thepdmi.com. Thanks again, everyone, and make it a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.